Hello, everyone. This is your host, Sergeant First Class Arslan Khan with the Warrant Officer Recruiting Company. And today we'll be exploring the 351 Lima Counterintelligence Warrant Officer Military Occupation Specialty. Our special guest is none other than CW5 Larry Purcell from the Headquarters U.S. Army Intelligence Center of Excellence. And he will be talking to us about what it means to be a 351 Lima Counterintelligence Warrant Officer. Chief, thank you so much for joining us today, and we are excited to hear your input on all the different ways the 351 Lima Warrant Officer Military Occupation Specialty contributes to mission accomplishment.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for doing this. 351 Lima is one of those critically short MOSs that continuously, year to year, just fall short of meeting their session goals. I hope this helps.
Sir, could you tell us a little bit about your experience as a warrant officer and how you feel about serving in your warrant officer specialty?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I've been in the Army for 31 years now, and I've been a 351 Lima for 22 of those years. And from time to time, I get the opportunity to speak to the brand new W01s going through their warrant officer basic course at Fort Huachuca. And I tell them, well, first I congratulate them for making the best career decision they could have made. And that was by putting in their warrant officer packet. And then I tell them that in my career, there's been two decisions, critical professional decisions that I made, which were good decisions and kept me in the Army as long as I've been in. And one of those was by putting in my warrant officer packet back in 1998. No regrets. By far the best decision I made in the Army was putting that packet in. And I never really thought about it at the time. I was a staff sergeant, and I was the assistant special agent in charge of the Zama field office in Camp Zama, Japan. And it was really my first opportunity to do operational CI in an OCONUS environment. And I absolutely loved the position. I loved the job. I loved the work. I got a sense at the end of the day that I accomplished something and made a difference. And I thought to myself, as a staff sergeant, mid-grade NCO, I was at that point in my career. I had about 9 years in service at the time. A point in my career, or what happens after this? After this position, I'm looking at, if I'm lucky, a sergeant first class, E7, E8 role, and would be looking for positions as a platoon sergeant, first sergeant, senior NCO type positions, which would take me further away from doing CI every day. And I really liked being an NCO. I was thrilled about putting those stripes on every day, and I loved what I did. And there's a certain aspects that I really enjoyed: training soldiers, leading soldiers, taking care of soldiers. But I really loved counterintelligence and doing that job as well. And leaving the ranks of staff sergeant, continuing on to senior NCO, to me, I just felt like that I would be pulled away from the job and the profession that I loved a little bit more. And so the special agent in charge of the Zama field office at the time was a CW2. And he looked at me one day and he said, "Staff Sergeant Purcell, you need to put your warrant packet in." And, that was kind of the trigger. And I just, from that point on, it was like a switch flip, and I started working on my warrant officer packet immediately and sent it up and got picked up and went off to walks. Walks was very much different back in those days. And no regrets. I haven't looked back. There's no doubt in my mind, 22 years later into this, that I made the right decision at the time. It has been an outstanding career, in every single position that I've held as a CI warrant officer has been very rewarding. And so many times I go home at the end of the day and I can't believe that we did what we did. In some cases, it's like something you would see in a book, read in a book, or see in a movie, and you really feel like that you've made a difference. And so I would tell any NCOs out there who are thinking about where they are in their career and how much they like doing what they're doing. If they're in an operational CI assignment, do you like what you're doing? And do you want to continue doing that? No doubt, you're probably wrestling with the duties as an NCO and you like being an NCO, but I would just put out there, if you really like doing counterintelligence and you like that part of the position, then entertain putting in your warrant officer packet. And I think that you would see that much like in my case, that you're making the right decision and you too will have no regrets.
That's a very intriguing story, sir. Thank you. For the potential applicant listening, we've asked questions that most of us have when deciding to pursue a career as a counterintelligence warrant officer. And we would like to delve into some of these questions and get your take on some of the most crucial questions we all want to know. Let us begin by asking, what do warrant officers in your specialty do in a normal span of a duty day when they start out as a new warrant officer in the cohort? And how do those responsibilities evolve into more responsibilities later on?
Well, what do 351 Limas do in a normal span of a duty day? Well, as a brand new Warrant Officer 1, 351 Lima, you, a lot of what you do is what you may have done when you were a sergeant. Warrant officers are still going to get up in the morning. They're still going to go to formations. They're still going to do PT and do all those things that soldiers do. However, as a brand new Warrant Officer 1, your role is different. It's not exactly the same as it was when you were a staff sergeant. I recently had a conversation from a brand new Warrant Officer 1 who finished up WOBC and was en route to his first assignment. So this Warrant Officer 1 calls me up one day, it's a Sunday afternoon, and he wanted to sit down and talk before he drove off to his first assignment. And he had a lot of anxiety about going off to his first assignment as a brand new WO1. And what I told him was the anxiety and even the fear that he was feeling was perfectly normal, and that it would actually be a little strange if he wasn't feeling any type of anxiety. But he had a lot of questions about what his roles and what his responsibilities were as a Warrant Officer 1 at this first assignment. Great questions and valid concerns. And I recall that when I was a W1, I had the same feelings that he had. And so what I had told him was, just simple things, like he wasn't unsure what his role would be with the platoon sergeants, with the first sergeant. Was he still supposed to go to them when he needed stuff? And how was he supposed to handle his in-processing as a Warrant Officer 1? And a lot of the things I told him was like, well, be normal. It's not that much of a change, although it is a shift. NCOs will look at you differently. You're going to find yourself having a lot more interaction with the company commander and other warrant officers, senior warrant officers within your unit. And that it was okay to be inquisitive, to feel like that even though you had that bar on now, that you weren't the subject matter expert, in a sense that you're not a W4, you're not a W5, you're a WO1. And being a technical subject matter expert in our field, when you put that bar on, it's much like what they teach you at Fort Rucker. It's progressive levels of leadership, management, and expertise. So as a W01, you're at the bottom of that ladder, and it's okay to be there. It's where you're supposed to be. That's where you start your progressive levels of expertise in management and leadership. And he needed to explain to commanders and company commanders that he was a W01 and not a CW3 or a CW4, and to give advice and assistance when it comes to making recommendations and being a part of the planning processes for CI training within a unit and operations and controlled CI activities within the unit. So just having that conversation with him it took me back 22 years, and I started to reflect on what it was like for me when I was a W01. But a lot of those feelings are normal, and it's normal to have that anxiety as a W01 when you roll in your first unit. And because just a few weeks ago, you were hanging out with the NCOs and doing NCO things. And then just a few weeks later, now you have a bar on, and people look at you differently. They treat you differently. They talk to you differently. And it creates a little bit of anxiety. And that's a perfectly normal feeling to have. And the only way that you get over that anxiety is by subjecting yourself to the mission and to the job and the task at hand. In other words, jumping right into it and rolling your sleeves up and getting to work and doing the hard work. And that is how you alleviate and get rid of a lot of that anxiety that you have. And what I tell the W01s as well is when you show up to that unit, that first unit as a W01, they don't know who you are yet. It takes time for them. It takes time for the commander to get to know you. It takes time for the senior NCOs and the other warrants to get to know you. So there's a sense that you're being looked at. And that's okay. That's a normal feeling to have. And as time goes by and you go to work every day, you're going to feel a little bit comfortable about what you're doing, and you're going to have a little bit more confidence in the decisions that you make and the advice and the opinions and the recommendations that you give and the input that you give in planning processes. You're going to have a little bit more confidence as time goes on. So go to work today and jump in, go to work tomorrow. You're going to feel a little bit more confident about what you did, more so than what you did the previous day. And by the time you get to that end of your assignment as a Warrant Officer 1, that first assignment, your zone of comfort is now significantly bigger than what it was when you showed up on day 1 as a Warrant Officer 1. And then you're going to PCS to your next assignment as a CW2, and you're going to have that anxiety on your shoulders again. And again, that's perfectly normal. You do the same thing you did when you showed up to that first assignment as a W01. You roll up your sleeves, you do the hard work, and you get involved in planning processes. And slowly over time, through that assignment, your zone of comfort is going to continue to increase. And so on and so forth through your W2 career or W2 assignments and into W3, W4. And your zone of comfort continues to expand. And again, that's progressive levels of leadership, management, and expertise that are developing you as a warrant officer.
Thank you, sir. That's a lot of great information there. Why would someone pursue this type of commission, and what are some of the benefits they take into the civilian world?
So to answer this one, I'm going to kind of compare and contrast the NCO grades and the warrant officer grades. So as we look at the NCO ranks, when you're that sergeant, when you're that staff sergeant, you're an NCO, but at that point in your career, you're doing the work that you were trained to do. You're doing your MOS. After staff sergeant, and I'm speaking in general terms, after staff sergeant, you tend to, when you hit those senior NCO ranks, there are certain windows that you need to jump through. You need to look for those NCOIC positions. You need to look for those first sergeant positions and those staff NCO type positions. you need to lead troops. You need to train troops. And warrant officers do that, but it's a different, it's a little bit different with the NCOs. And the more stripes that you pin on, the more years that you have in the Army, the further away you get from actually doing your MOS technical skills. As a warrant officer, it's exactly the opposite. The more dots that you pin on, the more rank that you obtain through those progressive levels of technical expertise and leadership management, the closer that you get involved, the closer you get to your MOS training. So as an NCO, you kind of pull away E7 and above in general terms from doing CI stuff. As a warrant officer, you're going to do CI stuff the rest of your career. And if you make it through the promotion windows and you do all the right things, your depth of understanding and experience within counterintelligence is going to be humongous. And that pays dividends, or could pay dividends well beyond retirement should you decide to make a career out of this. So let's just say, for example, that a Master Sergeant E8, perhaps even an E9 Sergeant Major, 35 Lima retires from the Army 20 plus years in, and they start looking for civilian employment somewhere within what the Army trained them to do, which is 35 Lima CI. So as you're filling out those resumes, the last time that senior NCO probably did CI on a daily consistent basis was probably back when they were a staff sergeant several years ago. So compare that with a warrant officer, 351 in Lima, who retires and starts filling out resumes to do CI as a civilian now, maybe with the Department of the Army. And the last time that warrant officer did CI stuff that he or she can put in that resume was today, right now. They were doing CI stuff today. They were doing it yesterday. They didn't stop doing it several years ago. So if we look at the marketability of what the Army trained you to do, in general terms, I feel comfortable in saying that CI warrant officer is going to be more marketable in the civilian workforce and the federal workforce than what his or her NCO counterparts could put on that resume. And continuing on with that, within CI specifically, we have a very large percentage of our CI workforce that are government civilians. We have programs out there. In fact, if you go to any field office, CI field office around the world, you will find Department of the Army civilians that are retired CI warrant officers, or maybe they were CI NCOs and got out of the Army at some point and decided to pursue the civilian opportunities. So again, as a warrant officer, and you're spending your entire career doing CI stuff every single day, is in most cases a very natural transition to retire as a 351 Lima and go work in our civilian CI workforce, continuing to do a lot of the things that you did as a CI agent, as a CI warrant officer when you were in uniform. But now you have the opportunity to continue to do that real world operational level CI stuff, controlled CI activities every day as a civilian. And the fact that you were a CI warrant officer doing CI stuff every day up to the time you retired make you extremely valuable to our CI civilian workforce out there.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate the insight there. Sir, if you had a young staff sergeant working in your shop and you were going to counsel them and give them advice on what types of jobs they need to start working in their enlisted career that would help them to achieve a commission as a 351 Lima warrant officer, what would those entail, sir?
If an NCO is entertaining the thought of putting in a warrant packet, yes, there are things that he or she can do in their career that will make them more marketable or increase their chances of being picked up for warrant officer. And since warrant officers are technical subject matter experts within their particular field, as an NCO, if you're thinking about putting in a 351 Lima packet, look for those positions that are going to exercise the skill set that the Army gave you. So you graduated SciSac. SciSac taught you how to do some things. Find those positions out there as an NCO that are going to allow you to do some of the things that you're trained to do. So being an NCO or an NCOIC in a position somewhere is all good because you're evaluated on your experiences in being leaders, but you're also being looked at for how much CI stuff have you done, and were you good at it? So they're looking at those the boards will be looking at those NCOERs, and they're looking at those points in your career where you held positions to where you were doing counterintelligence things in a counterintelligence unit. So if you find yourself out there, and the Army's good about this, sometimes we end up in positions in fields, different shops out there to where we're doing everything but what we were trained to do within our MOS skill set. So if that's you out there and you're in a position that you are doing good in, but it's a position that the Army didn't train you to do the things that we teach at SciSac, find a local CI office, find a CI organization on your base, on your post somewhere, and try to find opportunities to do CI things. And because it's those skill sets and that experience you have as a CI NCO doing CI functions, those are the things that we're looking for and that will make you more marketable when the accessions board is looking at your technical experience that you have as an NCO doing CI.
Thank you, sir. That's a lot of great information. What types of training can a young enlisted NCO benefit from when considering to pursue a career as a 351 Lima Warrant Officer Military Occupation Specialty?
There are courses out there for 35 Lima NCOs that they can attend that will help them increase their chances of making 351 Lima. The big one out there is JCTA, the Joint CI Training Academy at Quantico in Virginia. They offer quite an extensive course catalog on all things CI. And what's good about JCTA is your unit doesn't have to pay for it. I mean, those funds all come from other agencies, and 35 Lima students or even 351 Limas have the opportunity to put in an application to attend one of the JCTA courses, and all of the TDY expenses are paid for by somebody else other than your unit. You know, we're strapped for funding continues to be a restriction for a lot of soldiers and units for TDY cost. This is an excellent opportunity for 35 Lima NCOs to bump up their resume and to attend CI training that the unit doesn't have to pay for. So those 35 Lima NCOs in there, I highly encourage you to look up the course catalog for JCTA and pick out some of those courses in there that will help your resume and give you some additional CI training beyond what you got in your normal PME and SciSac.
Thank you, sir. What is the most common mistake made by applicants applying to the cohort, and how can it be avoided?
Most common mistake for applicants. Well, there's a couple of them that come to mind. And actually, one of them is before you're even an applicant. When I talk to NCOs about putting in warrant officer packets, I find that one of the common responses as to why is NCOs oftentimes feel like that they don't have the right amount of experience and the right amount of assignments doing CI that would qualify them to put in a warrant officer packet. So it's just that fear of getting over that fact that you may not have the experience to be a warrant officer. And what I tell them is, well, if you do put in a warrant officer packet and you go off the walks and you become a 351 Lima, again, you're starting out as a warrant officer 1, not as a CW3 or a CW4. So it's that progressive levels of development that you go through in your warrant officer career. So warrant officer candidate school and WOPC is not going to make you an expert in counterintelligence. It merely puts you on the path that leads in that direction, that through those progressive levels of leadership and technical experience and expertise, you'll get there. But you got to get on the road first. And you do that by getting over that thought that you don't have the right amount of experience in CI, or you don't have the right amount of assignments or the right assignments in CI to even entertain putting in a 351 Lima packet. And what I tell you is put it in. You got to get over that thought that you're not a subject matter expert. No, you're not a subject matter expert. But you got to, like I say, get on the road first, put your packet in. So that's really the biggest thing when I talk to 35 Lima NCOs and I ask them that question: how come you don't put your warrant packet in? Oh, well, Chief, I've never really done operational level CI. And I don't think that I would be qualified to do that. And you graduated SciSac and you've had some experience doing CI things because you're a 35 Lima. So chances are, if you meet the prerequisites for 351 Lima and for warrant officer, go off to school, put your packet in, go off to school, and you'll get that experience. And that's what I like about being a warrant officer, is because once you come out as a W01, you are going to get that experience. So if you had those thoughts as a 35 Lima NCO, well, those thoughts are going to be quickly gone when you come out the other end as a warrant officer 1. Another thing I noticed with some of the applicants is having the right amount of oversight on that packet, because that package you put in, it's pretty extensive. And yeah, you have to put it, you got to go through the work to put it all together. But as you put that packet together, get somebody to look at it. Get some of your NCOs to look at it. Get some of your warrant officers to look at that packet. If writing is a problem for you, it's going to come out in the packet. And as people review your packet, it'll be noticed. So writing is a big thing, but you got to be able to write. But you already made it through SciSac, you're 35 Lima NCO, so you've really already proven that you can write. So as you write your resume and put your warrant officer packet together, get somebody to take a look at it. I've written several letters of recommendation, senior warrant officer letters of recommendation for packets. And when I start having those initial conversations with NCOs who are wanting to put in a warrant officer packet, we have a lot of conversations and we talk for a while about why they're going this route. And as I go through that, I'll say, if I think they'll make a good warrant officer, say, sure, I will write your letter of recommendation, your senior warrant officer letter of recommendation. However, before I write that letter, I want to see your entire packet. So as they put their packet together, and they'll bring their packet to me, and I will go page through all their NCOERs, through their resume, through their entire packet. And we'll make corrections, we'll make additions as needed. And if I think that's a good packet that NCO put together, well, then the last thing I'll put on top of that is that senior warrant officer letter of recommendation, because my name and my reputation is going with that packet. And so I want to make sure that it is the best packet we could possibly put together and send it up. So those are the two big ones. Is again, the first one is just getting over that fear of you might not have the requisite amount of experience or assignments in CI to qualify as a warrant officer. In most cases, that's just simply not true. And the second thing is having somebody look over your packet, 2-3 sets of eyes looking at that packet as you put it together.
Yes, sir. Some really great advice there. When submitting a packet to the board, what do board members value the most? And could you help us to describe the process that takes place when your packet is reviewed by the board?
So as you put that packet together and that senior warrant officer letter gets their letter in your packet and it gets sent up for the board or the panel, there's really two stops that it's going to stop at. Use of rec is going to be one of them, and what they're looking for is does the applicant meet the prerequisites to be a warrant officer? The right years in service, are any waivers and time in service waivers or moral waivers or anything like that needed for the packet. But for the technical portion of it, it goes off to the proponent. And for 351 Lima, that comes out here to Fort Huachuca. So the packet gets reviewed at Huachuca, and they're looking for, does the NCO, does the applicant have the right amount of CI training and experience to be a warrant officer? So as you're putting that packet together, highlight all those times in your career where you've done CI stuff, where you've done the things that SciSac trained you to do. And those are the things, the technical things about your MOS that you need to highlight in that packet, and what the proponent and what the panel is going to be looking at in regards to being the CI warrant officer. So even if you're in a unit where you haven't done a lot of CI work, concentrate on the CI training that you've been through, the JACITA courses that you've been through. If you've done any exercises where you supported CI organizations and units, concentrate on that. Bring all that CI training and experience out in your resume and highlight that to the panel as they look at the qualifications to being a CI warrant officer.
Once an applicant is selected, how long do they attend warrant officer candidate school, and how long is the training for 351 Lima warrant officer specialty?
So once the NCO, the applicant, is selected for warrant officer in the 351 Lima training pipeline, expect to go off to Fort Rucker for warrant officer candidate school, which is right now 36 training days. And upon graduation from warrant officer candidate school, 36 training days, you will make your way out to Fort Huachuca, where you will attend warrant officer basic course for 98 training days. And then while there, you should receive your orders to your first assignment.
Sir, thank you for the insight on all of that. What advice would you give to a newly selected NCO in your unit on how to prepare for warrant officer candidate school and the follow-on warrant officer training they're about to conduct?
How to prepare for walks. Well, physical fitness is a big one. You're going to have to be able to pass the ACFT for both WOBC and WOCS. And walks is much different from when I went through 1998. Now, significantly different, but one thing that hasn't changed between then and now is the high level of physical fitness that the applicant has to be in before attending school. The other thing, from what I hear from talking from recent graduates of WOCS, is apparently land navigation is a big one. That's a tough milestone for people to get over. When you get there, they're going to give you, from what I understand, you're going to get all the platform instruction and PEs that you need from the cadre at Fort Rucker on conducting land navigation. But then there's a land navigation course apparently that you have to go through that can be pretty tough. So level of physical fitness is important, and maybe brushing up on some of those land nav skills that you got as an NCO. and that will certainly help. As far as getting out to Fort Huachuca and WOBC, how can an NCO prepare for that? Well, you may actually know some of your classmates in your WOBC class. There may be some other 351 Limas that you served with as an NCO. But getting along, being a team player, listening to your cadre, giving input, and finding mentorship, and listen to some of the people in the cadre that have already been down your road, and they will have valuable lessons and insights that can help the NCO make their way through the 351 Lima training pipeline.
Thank you, sir. Once you've been trained and been on as a warrant officer, do you have any input on where you will be stationed? And what is the process for selecting a duty station?
So once you're at Warrant Officer Basic Course, you'll probably know what your first assignment is going to be, or be notified what your first assignment is going to be. And I wish I could sit here and say, yeah, you're going to fill out your dream sheet and you're going to get exactly where you want to go and the unit that you want to go to. But in this instances, it really is to the needs of the Army. And if we look at the warrant officer grades, of course, there's more WO1s than there are W5s. The largest population is with our WO1s, W2 population. So it really is to the needs of the Army. And right now with 351 Lima, we're probably sending a little over half of the population is going to end up in like force gone type assignments, and probably a little under half ended up in operational assignments with INSCOM or throughout INSCOM's global footprint. So a number of different places that you can go, but for certain is that you will go to a 351 Lima billet as a CI technician, and you're going to be doing CI stuff, whether it be planning, organizing, conducting CI training, supporting exercises in a CI role, or at a field office, perhaps in an operational level unit, conducting CI controlled activities. Of course, I believe they still have the option where WO1s will be able to pick 3 or 4 assignments or locations that they want to go to. But at the end of the day, it really is just much like it was when you were an NCO. It's going to be to the needs of the Army.
Well, that's really good to know information, sir. I appreciate it. When approaching your unit's officer in charge and the senior warrant officer for a letter of recommendation, what steps should an NCO take to position themselves in receiving a stellar letter of recommendation, sir?
So that senior warrant officer letter is a requirement for the applicant packet for warrant officer, as well as OIC and your commander. And so there are some things that an applicant can do to make sure that they receive a stellar letter of recommendation. And one of those things is just to be involved in the process. One, if you can find that, the perfect scenario is if you work for a senior 351 Lima. Because if you work for a senior 351 Lima, of course, that warrant officer is going to know you. You're going to know that warrant officer. You work together. So there's no one that can speak better about you and your technical qualifications and experience to be a 351 Lima than that senior 351 Lima that you work for, CW3, 4, or a 5. And so that's the ideal situation. But there are a lot of 35 Lima NCOs out there who are wanting to put in a packet, but there is no senior 351 Lima in their chain or in their office or on their teams. So they don't have a senior warrant officer that they can go to for a letter. In those cases, I would reach out, find one. Go out there, and whether it's in a different unit, and it could be a senior 351 Lima that you've never met before and doesn't know you. And I've had this happen to me a number of times where NCOs have sought me out looking for a letter of recommendation. If you don't have a senior 351 Lima in your organization, that doesn't mean that your pathway to becoming a CI warrant officer is forever gone. Find a senior warrant officer out there. And what that usually involves is, I'm not just going to write a letter for somebody that I don't know and can't speak to, but I will sit down and I will either steer you to a senior warrant officer within your MOS, or if it's 351 Lima, I will have a series of interviews and conversations with you. I will look at your file, all of your NCOERs, make sure that you meet all the prerequisites for becoming a warrant officer and specifically becoming a 351 Lima. And we'll talk about your personal and professional career and where you've been, what you've done, the training that you have. I may even ask you some questions on counterintelligence and some of the functions of counterintelligence and roles and responsibilities thereof. And not only am I gauging your level of experience and training that you have in CI, but I'm going to be looking at you as a person too. Do you have the ability to carry on a conversation? Do you have the ability to establish rapport? Do you have the ability to give your thoughts and opinions, and they are logical and critical and can apply some of that stuff? So I'm looking for you, your abilities to excel as not just a CI subject matter expert, but as a manager and as a leader. And if those interviews and those conversations, come out good, well, then I no hesitation whatsoever in putting together a letter of recommendation for a 351 Lima applicant. But in some cases, there's people out there that the applicant may work for that are not really good at writing letters. So if the applicant is seeking a letter of recommendation, read those letters that go in your packet and don't be hesitant. If there's spelling errors in there, there's grammar errors in there, or the format for the memo is jacked up, or bring it up to their attention and say, hey, this format's kind of messed up, or you got some misspellings in here. That's your packet, and even though you didn't write that letter is now a part of your packet. And for the board and the panel to see letters of recommendation where the format's messed up and spelling and grammar errors throughout, well, then think about what kind of message that's sending to the board. Here's a letter of recommendation, but this is not maybe not helping the applicant get a favorable decision out of the accessions board. So don't be hesitant about fixing that and getting that letter to read what you wanted to read in a coherent and logical manner.
Again, some very insightful information there, sir. When we speak about families, right? So what is family life like as a 351 Lima counterintelligence warrant officer? And how can we best take care of our families as we embark on our quest to become a 351 Lima, sir?
Family life as a warrant officer. Well, I think you'll probably see that it's much like when you were an NCO. You have a little bit more, as a warrant officer, you have a little bit more, especially as you pin on more dots, you have a little bit more latitude to make career decisions about particular assignments and locations that you may want to go. But the best way to take care of your family as you become a warrant officer is to figure out where your family is in your list of priorities. I've seen warrant officers, not just warrant officers, but soldiers in general. Sometimes, they're really, really, really good at what they do in their technical skill sets, and their loyalty and dedication to accomplishment of the unit's mission is steadfast and unprecedented by anyone. It's the hard chargers, those rock stars out there. But balancing family life with your professional duties as a warrant officer is important. I've seen too many times where a warrant officer is really good at what they do, and it's pedal to the metal all the time. But in some cases, the family suffers, and they could they have lost their marriage or lost their families because they put too much gas on the work side and not enough break and balancing that family life. It's a tough balance. And as a warrant officer, several times in my career, there's been points to where, you know what, there's something going on at work right now that requires all of my attention. And for short periods of time, it might be days, it might be a few weeks, and in some cases it might be a month or two, where it is just pedal to the metal, and you're working some serious hours, and the stress levels are up there, but you got to get through whatever it is that you're going through, and having the ability to recognize that your family is being put on the back burner for a bit. And in those cases where that's happened in my career, I recognize that my family is suffering right now, but I need to pedal to the metal on whatever it is that I'm working through. And then there's a time where you gotta hit the brakes, and you gotta come off the gas, and you've got to give back some of that time to your family. And when you have those pauses at work and those opportunities at work and doing warrant officer things to give back to your family. So you got to feed that. You got to feed the work piece of it. You got to feed the family piece of it, and it's a tough balance to feed both at the same time. So recognize that family is important, and if that's a big priority for you, just like work is, and being a warrant officer, that's a big priority too. But sometimes you got to give 100% to work, and family gets 5% or 0% for a bit, and then sometimes you gotta back off, and you gotta give your family 80%, 100% for a time, and slack off of what you're doing at work when you can come up for air. So it's matter just personal preference and arranging your priorities between family and work.
Really good to know, sir. Thank you. This is a two-part question, sir. When creating your resume, what is the best way to highlight some of the skills you possess, and what are the most critical skills to highlight? Furthermore, what are some of the most critical trainings to highlight in your resume, sir?
So there are things that you can highlight on your resume and things that you want the panel to see. And those are any type of leadership roles that you have, or CI training and experiences that you have. Again, remember, you're applying for a technical MOS, and to being a warrant officer with a technical skill. So those are the kind of things that you want to highlight in your resume. For example, if you have been through any of the JACITA courses, you want to highlight that in your resume. If you have done any type of leadership role as an NCOIC, you want to demonstrate to the panel and the board that you can lead troops, and you can lead missions, you can lead sections, offices, and teams. If you are coming from an operational CI assignment, and you want to talk about what you did there at the unclassified level, anything investigations or operations that you participated in, that you ran, that you conducted, highlight all that stuff, because that's showing the panel that not only does the applicant have the ability to be a good NCO and lead troops and train troops, but the applicant also has some counterintelligence training beyond SISAC and beyond normal PME for NCOs. And they've been doing CI stuff out there, and they've been doing it good, and that's reflective in the applicants' NCOERs. And those are the kind of people that we certainly want to snatch up into the 351 Lima training pipeline. So highlight and key in on those leadership roles and any type of CI training and experience in CI controlled activities in those resumes.
Thank you for your insight, sir. What are some of the most important things to talk about in the resume summary page, and how do board members view these comments?
So the resume summary page, yeah. So again, much like the last question, this is your one opportunity, your one pager per se that you want to stick out, the wave tops of your packet. So 3 things to concentrate on in that resume summary: leadership, training, CI training specifically, and CI experience. You got 1 page right there. Talk about being a leader. Talk about the CI training that you've gone through outside of SciSac and normal PME, and talk about CI experience that you have doing CI controlled activities in a real world environment. Those are the things that if you have that stuff you want to go in depth on your resume, those are certainly three areas that you want to bring out on that summary page.
Sir, where are the 3 best duty stations one can expect to serve in while assigned as a 351 Lima warrant officer?
Best duty stations to serve in as a 351 Lima. Well, I've had quite a few of them as a 351 Lima, and you know what? I've liked every single one of them. And it's hard to narrow it down to the 3 best duty stations, because I can honestly say that I've liked every duty station that I've been at, CONUS and OCONUS, in every position I've filled as a CI warrant officer. So people have personal preferences, though, whether they want to go to a specific location or a specific unit. But there's a reason why I put in a CI warrant packet. That's because I wanted to do real world operational CI stuff. So, and becoming a warrant officer gave me the opportunity to do that for my entire career. And so I tend to gravitate towards and preference assignments to where I know I'm going to do real world operational level CI controlled activities. And so for me, that's typically been in INSCOM, Intelligence Security Command type assignments versus FORSCOM assignments. A lot of our FORSCOM units out there where we have CI warrant officers assigned are unfortunately in positions to where the units that they're assigned to don't have the right authorities to conduct real world CI functions. And so they end up doing a lot of other missions and a lot of training and planning training and conducting training in preparation of their wartime missions. But what's unique about counterintelligence is the fact that counterintelligence is in competition with our adversaries, who are very much trying to win during competition right now globally, so that they will be successful in armed conflict. And counterintelligence warrant officer's job is to ensure that the Army wins during competition by protecting our technologies, our research and development, our acquisitions processes, protecting those next weapon systems so that the Army will be successful should it ever be engaged in armed conflict, large-scale combat operations. So our job is, our real-world job very much happens today globally, both CONUS and OCONUS. So I tend to gravitate towards assignments where I know I'm going to be doing real-world CI activities versus in units that don't have the right authorities to conduct CI activities during competition.
Well, those sound like some really great duty stations, sir. Thank you. What are some of the most important certifications and training experiences warrant officers should pursue in the course of their career in this warrant officer military occupation specialty, and why is that?
So in your career as a 351 Lima, there certainly are a lot of opportunities to get additional training. And as I've mentioned before, the warrant officer is progressive levels of training, experience, and expertise in your craft. And so your training doesn't stop after WOBC or after ILE advanced course or even SSE. Outside of your normal warrant officer PME courses, there's courses that a 351 Lima can attend, which will broaden and expand their horizons and expertise in counterintelligence. And a lot of those courses are what I mentioned previously at the Joint CI Training Academy in Quantico. So there's a lot of courses there that a warrant officer can take that will hone their skill sets, their technical skill sets, and their craft outside of JACETA, the J2X course, and possibly some courses at HTJCO out at Fort Huachuca can be very beneficial as a warrant officer continues that venture, lifelong learning in their career as a warrant officer. So look for that stuff, because as a warrant officer, you want to maintain relevancy within your field, within your technical skill set, and certainly operational experience doing operational controlled CI activities in units out there is a good way to maintain your relevancy. But staying up to date on the doctrine and staying up to date on policy and broadening your skill set by attending some CI related courses out there at JACETA or even HTJCO to maintain your relevancy in your craft.
Sir, on the subject of promotions, starting from W1, how long will it take in this warrant officer military occupation specialty to progress through each rank to reach CW5?
Expect to be a W01 for 2 years. And that's a local promotion from W01 to CW2. And then at CW2 and beyond, you're looking at Department of the Army Centralized Boards process, which means a panel of senior officers and warrant officers whom don't know you, never met you, but only know you based on what you look like on paper, are going to determine your promotion, determine your career. So 2 years as a W01, and then the general rule of thumb is about 5 years from pin on to pin on. So for example, 2 years as a W01, you pin on CW2. From the time you pin on CW2 to the time you pin on CW3, you're looking at about 5 years, which means that as a W2, you'll spend 4 years as a W2, and in that fourth year, your promotion board will meet. And if you get picked up, and you probably will, you're looking at within the next year, within that fifth year of pinning on CW3. And it's generally about the same as it progresses from 3 to 4 and 4 to 5. So if we're looking at 5 years from 2 to 3, and another 5 years from 3 to 4, and another 5 years from 4 to 5, I mean, that's 15 years plus the 2 years as a W01. You're looking at about 17 years of warrant officer service to generally progress from warrant officer 1 to chief warrant officer 5.
Thank you, sir. As one retires from this warrant officer military occupation specialty, are there lifelong organizations that one may take part in as a former warrant officer to champion issues concerning warrant officers exclusively?
Sure. So once you retire from the Army as a warrant officer, there are lifelong organizations that you can continue to be a part of. One of them is the Warrant Officer Association. In most locations where the Army is at, there will be a Warrant Officer Association chapter, which is comprised of active duty warrant officers and retired warrant officers that do lots of community events and fundraising and charity, and also champion the cause for warrant officers at the congressional level. So, and as a retired warrant officer, you can be a part of that. And so I would encourage warrant officers, to stay involved. And one of the things I've liked about being a warrant officer is within the cohort itself, the level of commitment and understanding amongst the camaraderie amongst warrant officers, regardless of what your MOS is I think better than what you would find in the O grades and in the NCO ranks. Warrant officers tend to help warrant officers out wherever they're at. Even in social media, we have warrant officer forums and pages out there where if you got a problem or a concern or a question, you post it, and within the cohort and the community of warrant officers, someone out there that you don't know, but they're a warrant officer too, or a retired warrant officer, they're going to help you out. It's just that level of we came from the same backgrounds. We all, regardless of what our MOS is, we all came through Fort Rucker. We're all recognized as technical subject matter experts within our career fields, and there's a lot of respect within a cohort about being someone who's a master of their craft. And so I've always liked that about being within a cohort, is the ability of warrant officers to be there for each other and to help each other out, whether it be giving advice or recommendations to resolving complex issues within your field or within your career. If you need something to get the job done, somewhere out there's going to be a warrant officer. If they know about what your situation is and if they can help, they're going to help. So I've liked that about being part of the cohort, and I'm happy to know that upon my retirement, when I retire, that's going to continue. There'll always be warrant officers out there that will help you out, even though they're retired.
All right, sir. Why should someone compete to be a part of 351 Lima Warrant Officer MOS, and how does it benefit the nation?
Why should someone compete to be a 351 Lima? Well, I'll go back to that old Army recruiting slogan back in the 80s or whenever it was. Be all you can be. And the patriotism that the American soldier has is, and it's an incredible thing to be a part of and to witness every day. And coming up through the ranks as an NCO, soldiers and NCOs generally want to be all they can be. And if you like your craft, you like your skill sets and what the Army's training you to do, what you go to work every day to do, becoming a warrant officer is just another road where you can continue to be all you can be. And it doesn't have to stop or end with a sergeant major, command sergeant major, or first sergeant. You can keep on going by applying to be a 351 Lima. You really are striving to be all you can be. And those things, that the Army, basic values, that the Army teaches soldiers when they come in, and that traverses through the NCO ranks and through the warrant officer ranks. And the ability for the last 22 years as a CI warrant officer to be all I can be in support of our country, in support of the Army. It's there every day. The opportunities are there. All you have to do is just wake up every day, go to work, and keep moving forward. And you will move forward. And a career as a warrant officer is a perfect way to be all you can be. And so I've liked that about being a warrant officer, because it's impactful. You have the ability to influence policy. You have the ability to write policy. You have the ability to influence and write doctrine. And with that, retiring as a warrant officer, you leave your mark. You leave your legacy for those warrant officers who are coming up behind you. And we're all moving towards a common goal in the defense of our country and the growth of the Army and our profession. So it's exciting times. And like I said in the beginning of this, just the decision to go warrant for me was the best decision that I made in my career. And I have had no regrets. And there's no doubt in my mind, any 35 Lima NCOs out there who are contemplating putting in a warrant packet, do it. You don't want to leave the Army, whether it be through separation or retirement, and continuously reflecting on the rest of your life on, I wonder what would happen if I would have put a warrant packet in. I wonder if I would have got picked up if I would have put that packet in. I wonder where my career would have gone if I would have went warrant. Or I wonder what my civilian markability would be within CI if I would have put my packet in way back when. So you don't have to put yourself in a position where you have regrets like that. So you're at a point in your time now in your career between 9 to 12 years of service, and even beyond 12 years of service, with time and service waiver, likely to get approved beyond 12 years. Put that packet in, and you too will have no regrets and enjoy your career as a CI warrant officer.
Thank you, sir. As a mentor in the cohort, what additional advice would you offer a potential applicant seeking to apply?
So let's look at NCO promotions for 35 Limas right now. And let's say you're a staff sergeant out there, and of course this fluctuates with time, but take a look at NCO promotions right now. What is the promotion rate for the staff sergeant to sergeant first class? Recently, the Army promoted a bunch of 35 Limas to sergeant first class. But beyond that, and with that, the NCO promotions have slowed down considerably. So I don't know what the exact percentage is for staff sergeant to sergeant first class. I believe it's in the single digits, and it becomes even more difficult from sergeant first class to master sergeant as a 35 Lima. I'm pretty sure that is a low single digit number for that selection rate. So as a 35 Lima, look at for a 20-year career with the NCO promotions being as difficult as they are for senior NCOs, for E7, E8, E9. Where do you see your career capping out at with rank? Are you looking at your terminal rank as hopefully as a sergeant first class? Chances are right now in these day and times, making master sergeant or sergeant major is extremely difficult. So let's compare that with warrant officer promotion rates for MI. So if we look at W01, once you become a W01, W01 to CW2 is nearly automatic. You really got to mess that one up to not make CW2. If we look at the promotion percentages across military intelligence, the promotion rate for 2018, 2019 for CW3 is 72% or was 72%, significantly higher than what senior NCO promotion rates are. Looking at CW4, in 2018, the promotion rate to CW4 was 84%. In 2019, last year, it was 65%. Again, it just, you can't even compare it with the senior NCO promotions. It's just way, way better. And even at CW5, if we look at 2018, the selection rate to CW5 was 17%, and in 2019, it was 29%. Now compare that to what the selection rate is from master sergeant to sergeant major. I bet you 29% for 4 to 5. I bet you master sergeant to sergeant major can't even get close to that. So your ability to move up the ranks as far as promotions is significantly better as a warrant officer than as a senior NCO. Sit down and do some retirement math. Figure out what your retirement is going to be. Your retirement pay is going to be as a sergeant first class or as a master sergeant. And then look at what your retirement pay is going to be as a CW3, CW4, and look at the difference. So we're talking about increased promotion potential in the warrant officer ranks, guaranteed higher retirement pay as a result of the increased promotion ranks within the warrant officer ranks. The ceiling is much higher for retirement pay and for promotion potential within the warrant officer grades than as the senior NCO grades. So I could sit here all day long and just give you all the pros of putting in your warrant officer packet. And I can't think of any reason why you wouldn't want to do it. So NCOs, if you're on the fence out there, do some math, look at what your retirement pay is going to be as an NCO, and look at those senior NCO promotion percentages and see what your chances are of making master sergeant, sergeant major, or even sergeant first class. And then compare that with the numbers that I just gave you, promotion percentages from 2 to 3 3 to 4 and 4 to 5, and then factor in that retirement pay. It's just you can't beat this deal. Put your packet in. Best of luck to you. Much thanks.
Chief, thank you for the privilege of your time today. We really appreciate all the great level of information you've provided us today. And for our listeners out there, if you're considering a career as a 351 Lima counterintelligence warrant officer, military occupation specialty, I would encourage you to apply and apply now. And as always, go warrant now.